Okay, we can start. Okay, good evening, everyone. Why are you sitting like cadets in a line? Huh? The morning batch sits here and there, wherever, right? So, first of all, I would like you to congratulate you on choosing public administration as an optional, right? You know why? Why is that? It's a courageous step. People would have told you outside. Okay, not me. So I'm saying why I'm congratulating because this is actually what you have to do for the rest of your life. If you're choosing a career in civil services, right? Obviously, when you think of civil services, a lot of probably ideas come to your mind, right? Seeing all those TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, motivation, most of them talking about red light, beacon, and power. So, how many of you are there for this power? Okay, most of you, right? Why not public service? Because most of you are going to lie in the interview that we have joined civil services for public service. बोलोगे वहां जाके नहीं? You have to, right? And they know also that you are lying. See, that is the beauty of the entire process. That even if they know you are lying, they will be convinced by you. Obviously, when we are in this particular phase of preparation, or when you are a student, an aspirant, right? You are influenced by multiple ideologies. As of now, you have not probably established a single line of thought regarding what you want. People have told you this is a career, this is a job, probably the best job which exists in the country, right? Even though the evaluation of that best is not logical. Best as per everyone can be different. So in my almost 17 years, including 5 years of preparation, 3 interviews and mains, writing PubAd, geography, physics, sociology, 4 optionals almost in 4 attempts, right? And seen lot of students, a lot of success, lot of failure, right? One thing is very clear, that all those who opt for this career, right, majority of them do not understand the nature and scope of this career. Unless you enter into that system, you will not realize exactly what you have worked hard for. As of now, you're working hard just for some employment, right? But most of the knowledge that you will acquire in public administration or any aspect of UPSC, it will tell you that civil services is a vocation. It's a profession. What do you mean by profession, right? So today and tomorrow we'll talk about general things, right? And not baggage you, right? I'm also little engaged with mains exam, right? A lot of students are writing the exam. So मैं अपना frustration आप पे नहीं निकालूंगा, right? So when we say civil service is a profession, what do you mean by word profession? Career, right? You must have heard the term career. Right? Let's start with very general discussion. So UPSC, or generally what people say, कि by UPSC एक lifelong secured, right, career है. Right? Certain things will motivate you, certain things will demotivate. It's okay. Okay. भैया आप सब बनना चाहते हैं. That is why you are here. Let's see. We preponed the batches 1 month before we started this class, so that you can save time on your CSAT preparation, right? Which is a very dreaded area right now, right? So, ये जो career है, or when you say profession, what does it mean? Anybody? Nobody knows why this. Right? When you use the word career means something which is your only, one and only activity that you do, one and only work you are engaged in. Anything else cannot be done with this. So concept of career means that it is not part-time. It is not a hobby. It is not contractual, right? It cannot be done in a casual manner. It requires your 24 by 7 dedication. So when we say civil services is a lifelong career, right? It's one of the most secured career. What we mean is that you are tied to that job. Right? You cannot disassociate yourself from this process. So whether you are in your office or you are in your home, it doesn't matter to the job. So you should always evaluate what you are choosing, right? अपने दोस्त और उससे भी इम्पोर्टेंट अपने दुश्मन, उनका चॉइस बहुत जरूरी होता है. You become like your enemy, you know that? So people who start preparing for civil services, they should be very well aware what they are choosing as a profession. If you think that this profession is about glamour, right? एक मॉडल आईएएस बन गई तो मैं भी मतलब है ना मॉडलिंग करता हूँ आईएएस बन जाऊंगा, right? Or someone became IAS just by declaring on the YouTube that I did nothing. I just worked for 1 or 2 hours a day, right? Everything else was done by my parents. Huh? बाकी पढ़ाई सब उन्होंने की मेरे लिए, right? So ये जो whatever you listen to this, okay, this may not be technically correct. So you should, when you are deciding to become one, you should also be ready to face the challenges and consequences it will create. Okay, that is what makes you a civil servant different from others. That is why it is a career different from others. You own your responsibility. When you are making decisions which affect the lives of tens, crores of people, right? You cannot shy away from your decision. You cannot say, I did a mistake, sir, right? Or it was to be done by him, I forgot, right? Or probably I missed this fact. You cannot say that. Ignorance and excuse are not part of civil services, right? A constable can say, ki, sir, okay, I got delayed, right? But can an SP say to the chief minister, I got delayed? He cannot say that. So imagine the kind of responsibility you are going to have. That is why the process of examination is that rigorous, right? That is why it is not easy to wear the crown, because there is always a sword which is hanging above you. तो अब बात करें. Now you understood the context क्या भाई, when you are coming to prepare. So I know, obviously, many of you might be aware, many of you might be rationally, you have evaluated your options, right? And then started this preparation. So this preparation must be first started with this clear-cut mindset, right? That plan B will come later. First, what is the plan? The plan is to do whatever we are doing in such an exceptional manner, right? That even we cannot beat ourselves. That is the idea, right? I know many of you might be knowing. So I was associated with probably one of them I established with one of my friends, which I left early. Then again, I partnered with one popular person also. That also I left, but yeah, that was because of some other reason. But the primary reason was that majority of us want shortcuts. Majority of the people are looking only for commercialization of this entire process. That is what not our target is. I very clearly tell in the very first class that I will take 5 to 5.5 months, but I'll finish it, right? The way that you don't need anything else. But it will be a rigorous process, time consuming, right? Brain consuming, heart consuming, सब consume हो जाएगा. So optional क्या है? Is like your girlfriend or boyfriend. GS is like wife. It can be managed with little rituals and procedures following the what you can say legal obligations. But optional requires your permanent commitment, right? You cannot say no to that commitment. So optional क्या है? It is something which you will exhibit, something which you will portray when you talk to someone. By GS, more or less the facts will be known by everyone. But you're optional. Let's say you're studying Sanskrit, somebody studying Hindi literature, somebody studying psychology, somebody studying pub at Pol Science, whatever. Your optional shapes your characteristics. So the day you start visualizing your optional that you're studying, your subject, obviously, which becomes something like your alter ego. You understand an alter ego? Right? What is an alter ego? Your reflection, right? Something which is your shadow, something which is just like you, but maybe something different in characteristics. So the day you become alter ego of public administration, that day you can not just score 300. If people are saying 300, they are almost lying. Why? Because they cannot go beyond that target. You can score more than 350 marks. The only commitment, only requirement is that, like I said, you have to beat the best. You don't have to be the best. So when I say best, what I mean is you, right? Where you start and where you end. That is very important. The process, the journey is very important. You cannot mug up the syllabus and say, no, I know PubAd. I know general studies, right? I know. No, that is not how it is. Facts can be known by anybody. Chat GPT knows all the facts. Still, you did not qualify UPSC prelims. You know that or not? So that does not mean UPSC is so tough, right? That only means that UPSC also requires critical human thinking, not just machine thinking. Right? When you see something, you interpret it. Right? The UPSC is obviously something different from what you have been doing in your university and colleges. Right? So this you must always keep in mind that, okay, what is that something extra? What is that something value which I can add to what I'm learning today? It's not just about knowing the information, right? Information is the starting of knowledge. So the day you are able to cultivate knowledge, or I would say develop knowledge, you can anticipate, okay, I'm reading this news, for example, G20, right? You must have read all the news regarding G20, right? Everybody, so many videos are being made on G20, right? What's its cultural impact on India? G20 is a summit level meeting that happened in India. Summit level is the head of the state level meeting, right? Mostly of the developed countries. As our esteemed Prime Minister said, we are in Amrit Kal. That you agree? We are in Amrit Kal. Sure. You are fortunate to be starting your preparation in Bharat. I did it in India, right? So we are in some other phase, right? Now, when we say that we have a summit level meeting of most developed countries of the world, which almost contribute to 75% of the GDP of the world, what does it signify for us as a society? For this, you don't need UPSC preparation. Right? You can just tell me what impact it has culturally for us. No impact, सब बेकार हो गया. 3 days holiday, right? Cordoning of the entire area, right? Uselessly spending a lot of money. I'm talking cultural impact. Economic impact to hai, right? They have so much of contribution to global GDP. Cultural impact क्या हो सकता है? Right? Think about it. Tell me tomorrow. So that's why I'm just trying to tell you the importance of critical thinking. You're reading all the news, right? But you should also look beyond the words. ये सब तो हो रहा है, but can there be something which can also be a consequence of what we are seeing? Right? For example, when you say Indian society, what comes to your mind? Indian society. What comes to your mind? If somebody says, define Indian society, one word. Correct? Diversity, right? See, G20 link it to diversity, right? Okay, then art and culture, okay, correct? Fine, correct. सबका साथ है, सबका साथ विकास, सबका विश्वास है. Then, right? Largest amount, correct? Political, right? Caste, patriarchy, ये भी आता है दिमाग में. Poverty, injustice, ये भी आता है communalism, right? So yes, you told all the good things, no doubt, right? But see, you were conscious because I was asking you. You wanted to give something positive, right? And that is what happens when we are trying to write answers in the exam. We try to impress the examiner. That is not needed. We have to state the facts. So when you think of India or Indian society, you have a lot of positives and you have a lot of negatives. Now, obviously, it depends that how and when and where you are highlighting these things. So anything that you will read will always have pros and cons. Right? When you're writing the answer, now it is your ability to write it in a way where it makes sense to the examiner. That is what UPSC is, being relevant, right? Being commonsensical. If you see majority of the questions in the prelims, even if you say that, sir, I'll prepare for 2 years, you may not be able to solve them. Right? A lot of people who were selected students, they could not clear prelims. So what does it indicate? Is it an exam where you qualify once and the next year again you will qualify? Impossible. The competition becomes similar again. So I'm telling you this why? Because once you understand the pattern of the exam, once you understand the mindset of the examiners, that makes the exam easy. It's not just knowing the information. तो एक बार अगर आपको ये समझ में आ गया how this exam becomes distinct from other exams. Okay, why do they focus on typical things? Why do they want to know them from us? Because that is the kind of work you have to do. Every job opportunity is created for the kind of people the organization wants to hire. So government wants to hire certain type of people and it is looking for those qualities only. So UPSC or IAS is not about being extraordinary. It's not about being intelligent. It's also not about just being from IIT or engineer, right? 63% people, engineers are getting into UPSC now. So there is a different agenda behind it. But let's say, so it's not about all these things, right? It's about how persistent you are. And obviously they are looking for neither the smart horses nor the gadhas, right? But they are looking for the hybrid of two, right? The gadhas which could be converted into ghodas, smart. Why? Because it's a government system. If you think you will have lot of liberty, lot of creativity, not allowed. But if you think, yes, you have the ability to be creative in the given system, allowed. There you will excel from others, right? And there, public administration or the optional that you're studying will shape you. Why? Because being 6 months with that, plus studying it again for a year, whatever, right? It starts giving you ideas about it, starts helping you understand things around you. So see, your conclusions, your ideas, your definitions, your understanding of the world is dramatically shaped by the subject you study. You study philosophy, right? You'll start crying tomorrow seeing someone on the road, right? Somebody is poor, begging. You go to the red light, a beggar comes, you start crying because probably you've read too much of philosophy. You are an administrator, right? You will be concerned about the process. You might start asking, "Bhai, kahan se aa rahe ho?" Right? Who has forced you to beg? Why do you beg? Why don't you go and do this work? You start giving them solution. See? So there are subjects that you study which describe things. There are subjects which you study which give you solutions to those things. That is public administration. It's a solution-oriented subject. It raises the question and then it answers it. There are a lot of options which only raise questions. Samaj mein aisa hai. This is what society is, right? But PubEd will say, okay, can we have a policy for that? Can we make some decisions to overcome this problem? See, so an administrator is a decision maker because he has to solve those problems. He's not just supposed to sit there and stand and highlight the problems. That is the work of politician, not the bureaucrats. So the kind of job आपको करनी है, right? Your preparation or your strategy must be based on that. So your mains exam is mainly focused on that. That whether this person is able to understand, interpret the particular content or the idea in the way it is needed, not necessarily correctly, in the way it is desired. So see, how do you interpret poverty, right? Or you know the definition of poverty, but how do you interpret it as a problem, administrative problem, political problem to be solved? So how appropriately you provide solution for that, now the examiner is looking for this. So somebody can give realistic solution, somebody can give idealistic solution, now the difference lies there. So see, optionals that you study, right, it has a lot of influence in not only shaping your answers, but also in the way you give your interviews. Secondly, obviously every optional has its relevance. As per the UPSC 69th report or 70th report, you will find that 4 or 5 optionals, right, including public administration, their success rate varies between 8 to 10.8% or 11%. Right? That does not make much difference unless the number of appearances are important. From 2000 or 1987, PubAd was introduced. And since then, obviously, they became an obsession with public administration. But this obsession was broken in 2012, or to say 2011. In 2008, UPSC changed the syllabus. It included a lot of dynamic aspects. Till 2008, the questions more or less were quite straightforward. Right? Straightforward means how many of you are right? How many of you are from technical background, science, engineering? Okay, fine. Humanities? Rest क्या है भाई? अच्छा, commerce? Okay, fine. MBAs, postgraduates, right? See, so okay, understand this way that from 2011 onwards, what happened? Right, in 8 they changed the syllabus. They brought dynamic aspects. Earlier they were asking more straightforward. It was never easy paper, but they were asking mostly straightforward questions. Straightforward means they were directly picking up certain lines from certain books. They were targeting specific ideas which were very well established. Okay, there was no duality of thought. So they would ask things which could have been written in a descriptive manner. But problem was that they were asking these questions in 60 marks. 60 marks means you understand around 300, 400, 500 words at least. There was no word restriction also. They used to write that, okay, kindly write in around 300 words or 350 words. Right? Obviously, everybody's urge would be to write more so that they can get marks. So when you're writing a 60-mark question, it becomes very difficult for you to write qualitative content because you'll keep repeating things, right? You read certain books. In the books, there are only 2 pages given or 1 page is given. Half of that is just, chit chat. So the quality content is probably only half the page. Now you have to replicate this half page in 300 plus words. How will you do it? Becomes difficult, right? Also to maintain the flow of ideas, very difficult, right? So 2012-13 onwards, now they changed the model. They started asking shorter questions, right? You know the structure of the paper? You've seen the question paper? Optional paper, right? There are 2 papers, paper 1 and 2. Every paper has 2 parts, part A and part B. Every part has 4 questions. That is total 8 questions. Out of 8, you have to do 5. In which question number 1, part A, question 5, part B. That is the first question of part B is question number 5. These are compulsory for you. They are 10-mark questions, right? Now, when you are attempting paper now, so you are getting the questions somewhere around 15 marks, 20 marks, 30 marks maximum. Now they're not asking 30 also. 15, 20, 20, right? Or maybe 25 into 2. So each question is 50 marks. They break it up now. Earlier they were asking one question of 60 marks. Now they are asking 3 questions in 50 marks. So what has changed now? If you're writing earlier, what would be the advantage? If you're writing now, what is the advantage? See, earlier it was easy to predict the topics. because there were big questions. Obviously, not every question qualifies to be asked in 300 marks or 300 words, right? But we know, okay, but this topic is just 5 words, it cannot be asked in 300 words. So we could at least predict that this could be the classification of the question paper, right? Plus, dominant topics were understood very easily. Okay, see, this is a dominant topic, this is a dominant theory, okay, we'll more or less this may be asked. There was a pattern also. Now they have changed the patterns. After 2013, now 12, 13, 14 were the years where PubAd was onslaught on PubAd. PubAd was butchered like anything, right? जिसको हम बोलते हैं PubAd की बैंड बजाना, right? 3 years almost. Why that happened? Now, one was that in 2012, right, and that is also very typical, right? The year I started teaching, that year itself they started butchering PubAd, right? Fine, but still, see, I think I taught 13 students then. 3 qualified finally, and one of them got one of the highest, Ashish Pal, 2013. 233, highest was 235, he got 233, right? But that was the highest. So those years were little typical. Why they were typical? One, the influence of the IM. Generally, the question papers are either made by the political science department of DU, right, or some contribution from Lucknow University, Sagar University, to an extent JNU, right? So see, every government, when it comes to power, even if it does not say, it has an ideological influence. The question paper setters or examiners, they also come from a particular ideological mindset. So today, right, let's say dominance of BHU. So there were certain universities, because public administration is an optional or subject, which is generally not taught in a very normal manner, or it is not normally available everywhere, right? Jamia has also PubAd as political science department, part of political science department, right? So many of the universities, public administration emerged basically as a research-based study, right? It was started or initiated from political science. But because political science is very theoretical subject, a lot of mugging, theory, ideology, and obviously studying political science would not have given us advantage in implementing. Political science is more about understanding formulation of policies. What is needed is implementation of policy, right? How good a policy government makes, but if it is not implemented well, it is useless. So it was realized we have to study something which helps improve the implementation of policies, which improves administration. So while formulating, right, we can put all the good aspects of policy, but how we'll achieve this in practice? In theory, we can write all the good things. How are we going to apply this in the real world? That is what public administration is. So these universities did not do much of independent study in public administration. IIM, Indian Institute of Management, or management institutions are also one institutions which study public administration as part of a subject called public policy and public management. Okay, that is a more specialized area. So they also study that part. Universities also study that part. Research institutions also study that part. JNU also studies that part, MPhil in governance and public policy. Many institutions today, Azim Premji University, Ashoka University, they are all studying now public administration or public policy as an area. Now you see, you have today diverse academic people who are studying PubAd, right? And who can contribute to public administration. Imagine this situation 10, 15 years back. Okay. That was not the awareness, academic awareness regarding public administration. क्यों? नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी direct. Right? Let's say 10 years back, how will you be employed if you study masters in PubAd? Unless you prepare for UPSC. There's no direct appointment, right? There's no academic position. In 10 years, what has happened? A lot has changed. Niti Aayog has emerged, which is looking for all the policy advisors. ये policy advisors कौन सा है? Political scientists नहीं है, public administrations. They are all coming from public administration background, public policy background, governance background, right? 90s, late 2000, Governance becomes a very important area. The concern for study of poverty emerges again. See, so you are in a different phase. When we ended up, that was a different phase. So when you see 2012, 13 now, I am influenced that paper, right? 12 paper, 13 paper, influenced by IIM Ahmedabad. So they had a dominant focus on management theories and principles that became complicated, tough. And why they are tough? Because obviously in normal studies or normal course of study of UPSC, we don't encounter those terms. So people will say कि वो papers इतने tough थे, right? 2013-14 से पॉबेट एकदम अलग आता है. Question समझने में time लगता है. You might have read reviews many places, right? Many people would have talked to you and told you, but see, that is not so. Why? The logic is you are not evolving as per the exam. If that PT has come this year's prelims, you gave? Some of you gave the exam? No? So some of you saw the paper? How was the paper? It is always tough. It's UPSC. Like example?
Like it was more database.
Fact-based.
Fact-based rather than just was more analysis like surveys.
See, first the format, right? They changed the format, right? Let's say people were accustomed to typical kind of solutions, right? Typical format of MCQ, they were accustomed to that, right? And there were a lot of internet babas who were telling, "Ki, bhai, this is how the exam will come, right? This is how you have to guess. These many questions you have to do, that you don't have to do." Everybody was giving some nuskha. Right? You understand nuskha? Dadi nani ka nuskha. So they were all giving those nuskhas, right? And obviously, when we are in uh, or when we are in a distress situation, we are vulnerable, right? We accept any nuskha. So if somebody had told you, "Ki, you take this haldi, tie it here, go to the UPSC exam, you will definitely qualify." Right? There's a Baba telling all that on the YouTube. Right? So you would have done that. Why? Because we are in distress. When we are in distress, we accept things. Right? We are not rationally thinking. So logic is that people predict the trends. Okay, trend. Now UPSC is the only exam in the world which does not come with a trend, right? Apart from that Chinese exam, Gaokao. You heard of that exam? Gaokao is one of the toughest exams in the world. So apart from that, probably UPSC could be taken as an exam which generally do not follow patterns. So see what they did after 2013, 14 or 14 onwards, they changed the patterns every year, right? Every 2 years, they started changing the pattern. How they change the pattern? Let's say, for example, right? Most of you must be aware about, let's say, simple thing, right? A national park. Right? Have you heard of this term? National park, for example. National park, all of you know, right? Or you at least know the word environment. Let's simplify it further. Environment, right? Can we make a difficult question on this? Can we make a simple question on this? See, now what UPSC does. Earlier, the UPSC's pattern was mostly to move around this, right? What is environment? Can we define environment in this manner, right? Which of the following definitions of environment is most closest to the idea of environment? Now, see, they were asking these kind of questions. Now, let us take it. Now, see the orientation of UPSC. Let's move here, right? Let's talk about see environment, not directly, but indirectly, and that too probably 3-4 degrees indirect, not the direct indirect. You understand? सीधे सीधे indirect नहीं, right? Indirectly indirect. Now multiple levels of indirect. Now let's say species, right? How can you relate environment with species? You know what is a species? Example.
Plant species of different varieties.
Okay. ठीक है, okay. Let's say plants, flora, fauna, classification further, right? Likewise, let's say. So now what they are focused on, now they will say, okay, this is species, let us say any particular species. ठीक है, मान लो fish, मान लो for example, aquatic animals, right? They have died, let's say, in this particular scenario, many of these aquatic species died because of these factors or because of these circumstances. Do you think that one of the primary impact or one of the primary reasons for the disappearance of species is this particular environment? Now, see, they're asking environment, but they're not asking environment. They're asking environment through species now. Same has happened with more or less every paper, general studies paper, right? So if you say UPSC is tough, it is not tough. It is only challenging your mental ability. Your ability to think, जो सबसे easiest काम है, but still toughest है. Fine? You can sit and write heaps and heaps of paper, but if somebody tells you to think for 15 minutes, it will be very difficult for you. So see, it is challenging your thinking ability. Why? If you understand the nature of the service you want to opt for, you see the nature of changes the society is going through. Right? Today there is cyber security issue, right? Internal security issue, which has been created. Obviously, now we have external security issues also, which will continue for the next elections, till the next election, right? Then, right, you have global warming issue, right? You have artificial intelligence impact now, right? And so many other problems. Imagine 20, 25 years back, these were not the problems. Globalization was not that intensive. So these problems were not there. Now, who will face or who will solve these problems? You will solve these problems. Probably we were not supposed to solve those problems, these problems. We were solving general problems, poverty, health, education, fine. Now you see, so there are immense complicated problems emerging. How will administration tackle them? So if they don't develop critical thinking, right? If they just see motivation to increase their motivation, right? And ultimately, once they increase their motivation, further to improve that motivation and sustain it, again they see motivation. When will they think of the solution for the society? है कि नहीं? इतने मोटिवेट हो जाओगे तो सोल्यूशन तो ढूंढोगे नहीं, राइट? सीधे आप वहां चले जाओगे हाईएस्ट स्टेट में. So logically, you or they need people with critical thinking who can look for a problem before it emerges, who have solution, right, of probably the nth problem which will ever come. You see, they are trying to develop you that way. Labasna has modified the curriculum of civil services training. UPSC has been sending letters from 7 years to Labasna to improve. Labasna has been sending letters to UPSC to improve their recruitment levels. See? जो इनकम टैक्स ट्रेनिंग इंस्टीट्यूट है उसने कितनी बार गवर्नमेंट को ये फिनेंस मिनिस्ट्री को लेटर्स लिखे हैं कि भाई सी द काइंड ऑफ पीपल वी आर गेटिंग दे आर नॉट इवन एबल टू कैलकुलेट इनकम टैक्स. How can we appoint them to IRS income tax? Many of them flunk in the income tax paper. So it's not that we are having good, bad students. I'm simply saying why they are not oriented for that work which they have to do. So see, exam is the simplest way that can push your boundary to become like that. So that is why when you say unpredictable, it is not. Right? The only thing is that yes, it is not as predictable as you think. So you're coming from university, right? You have a very general orientation of certain things, and obviously you'll start thinking that only, unless your thinking gets modified in the beginning itself. So when you start your orientation here now, when you're preparing for UPSC, right in that manner, from the beginning itself, you'll start looking at things beyond the textbook. That is what is needed. Now coming to PubEd. So PubEd is obviously one of the optional. I'll not try to glorify this optional just because I teach, right? But public administration has a very dominant positives for the exam and a lot of negatives also, no doubt. Positive aspect of public administration is, like I said, it is a very applied subject. Problem with most of these students is they want to mug up information. They don't want to apply that information. So there comes a gap. They complete the syllabus, they revise it, they write answers, thousands of answers, right? But they do not practically visualize this knowledge when they are reading newspaper, when they are seeing news on the TV, when they are moving around in the market. They don't want to apply this. Once you start applying it, once you start viewing, let's say, newspapers in the context of knowledge, right? You start understanding why you have studied this theory. Most of the answers in the exam require that you write the theory and you also write its application. Identify its contribution to the present administration, right? Utilize this theory to develop better solution for the problems. Now see, how will you do it unless you visualize it? So we are more concerned with adding more content, right? Not with adding more understanding. That is one drawback. So PubEd has that beauty that if you study it properly, you will be able to visualize lot of areas in your general studies also. Especially when you see ethics paper, one part of ethics paper, that is called administrative ethics or probity in governance. That part will become very easy for you. In fact, you won't have to mug up ever if you understand public administration properly. So when people say yahan pe you have to apply a principle, right? You have to apply some theory. You have to talk about this idea, right? Everything is understandable within the domain of PubEd. Only thing is you need to apply it there. So your major effort in ethics or ethics in governance, I'm not talking about moral philosophies, right? But one part, that is 125 marks of that paper, major part, understanding part can come from your public administration or vice versa. If you've understood that properly, you can also contribute to public administration as well. So that is one part. Paper 2, polity and governance. So I would not say the entire polity, because in PubEd we don't study the entire polity. We study basically the governance part. You understand the difference? Polity and governance? Nobody. You have studied polity, you have studied GS little bit, anyone? Somebody has studied general studies or not? So finished. अच्छा पॉलिटी नहीं पढ़ा, जो मैं पूछूंगा वो नहीं पढ़ा होगा, है ना? Geography? You should have told this answer. So polity, let's say, now in polity you study facts, right? You study articles, you study the functioning of the government, right? Or internal structure of this state. You understand what is a state? When we teach, we start with zero, right? Very honestly, you will know everything about it, right? Provided you have to first understand it. Knowing will be later part. Every word that you'll encounter in public administration, every complication that you feel is there in the question paper, right? That everything you will understand. We start from that. We start from zero class, right? That you don't know anything, not even your general studies, right? In fact, I assume that you don't know even vocabulary. I start that way, right? So there is something called state. So when you study your GS paper 2, you generally focus on the understanding of the state. When you study polity, so the structure, functioning, principles, issues, problems, everything concerning state. What is a state? No. That's why I say you have to be very particular about vocabulary. There you lose marks, you know. So when you write love letters to someone, you write now or you email it now? You just send an SMS. Not that also. Instagram, you know? Oh, WhatsApp. Right? Emoji bas khatam. Pata chal gaya usi se. See how language has diminished itself. So when you write something to someone, let's say you're writing a letter to your father, chalo wo bhi chhod do. Are you cautious about the terms, words you write? Right? You do it or not? Do you review it once you write it? So imagine you're writing that answer to your father, UPSC. हम सबके father है UPSC, right? So let's say you're writing that answer to UPSC or your father. Will you review it? That is very important. That means every word that you write, Every time that you spend must be valuable, very valuable. Don't spend your words unnecessarily. Don't waste it. So when we start writing a president of India, for example, right? Our existing president, Dr. or Mrs. Murmu, ye, comes from this background. She was coming from a poor background. So then all useless stuff. So when you're writing about president, generally we write that way, story. When you're writing about president, right, you have to start with the first line that you write. First paragraph that you introduce your answer, right, makes the whole difference. The examiner, the moment he reads your few lines in the beginning, he realizes that this person has maturity to write this answer or not. Obviously, he'll give marks for facts, no doubt, right? But your formation of answer is so essential that at least 2 marks or 1.5 to 2 marks you get just for the structure of the answer, the way you have expressed it, not the language. Right? We don't have to be Shashi Tharoor, right? But we have to be expressive in a way that he is able to understand what we are trying to convey, and probably in the minimum words possible. So अगर हमने स्टेट लिखा वो गवर्नमेंट नहीं है, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट लिखा तो गवर्नमेंट गवर्नमेंट है, स्टेट नहीं है, राइट? और अगर ऐसा होता तो व्हाई शुड वी यूज द वर्ड स्टेट? वी शुड हैव यूज्ड द वर्ड गवर्नमेंट. व्हाई टू वेस्ट टू वर्ड्स फॉर वन आइडिया? लॉजिकल है कि नहीं भाई? डिक्शनरी में तो लिखा जा सकता है, राइट? बट इन जनरल व्हाई वी आर राइटिंग इन द सब्जेक्ट? सो यू सी, व्हेन यू से स्टेट, स्टेट इज नॉट गवर्नमेंट. स्टेट इंक्लूड्स गवर्नमेंट, right? State is a political entity, right? In very simple way, if I say that this is a classroom, classroom signifies something, knowledge, learning, right? A system of education maybe, fine. So the moment I say state, it also signifies something. What does it signify? It signifies power, as simple as that. So when you say I went to the market, that word market signifies something. You say I went to the temple, it signifies something, right? And if you say I went to the temple which was functioning like a market, that will also signify something else. See? तो जैसे आप जो term use करते हैं, it has a meaning. It conveys its characteristics. So the moment I say state, by state क्या है? How state is distinct from something else? So state is a system of power. What kind of power? Power of society. So if I want to indicate the power of society, of a particular society, right, which is residing in a particular territory. So if I just want to indicate that, okay, there is a society which is living in a particular territory, right, and it has a power, and this power is exercised by a system. What is that system? So in a society, the system or entity which exercises power on behalf of the society is called state. Now, state has 3 organs: executive, legislature, judiciary. Executive is called government. Right? So one part of the state is government, only one part. Right? State also includes political parties, citizens, and so many things. Everything that has political orientation, that may be called political in nature, is all part of the state. Citizens, political, right? Because citizens vote, citizens are part of political process, right? Political parties, political. Government, political. Bureaucracy, administration, political. Yes, it is all part of the system. So anything which is related, remotely related to power, exercise of power, you usko state bolte see. So every word that you choose, everything that you write, right, you don't have to be that calculative. But I'm simply saying, if you start understanding things in that manner, then automatically you will pick and choose the term which will be more relevant. Once you write this term, right, your marks enhance. So the moment you replace state by government, marks reduce. Understanding? This is how the UPSC works. Obviously, it has not to be complicated. It should be simplified. But even in simple way, concepts should be very clear, right? So let's say public administration now. Why should you opt public administration? We are talking about. So paper two, you'll find the polity part, which is more about the state, right? One part of this paper two, GS, mostly which is dealing with constitution, right? Political parties, political systems, comparative political systems, and all that. That part is mostly polity part, right? Or functions of different organs, right? When you apply, when you understand how these organizations function in the society. For example, like I said, you have President of India, and you study President in polity. Which article relates to President? Is judiciary a part of state? Ujjwal? No, right? Judiciary is part of the state, obviously, right? But judiciary is part of the government? No. So you're asking is part of the state? Yes, it is. Why not? Article 13, or sorry, Article 12 of the Indian Constitution. You read, but try to understand, right? Don't be misled by Lakshmikant, right? Article 12 is only for defining the state with respect to fundamental rights, right? So your part 3, which is fundamental right, Article 12 to 35. So Article 12 deals with the definition of state only with respect to that. You'll understand when you study polity, right? So one part, like I said, president. So president, which article we have? 52, right? There shall be president of India. Now see, when you study polity, you study 52, 53, provisions of president, functions of president, likewise, right? Now see, cut to public administration or governance. So in PubEd, what do you study now? You're studying this polity, no doubt. But what are you studying? You're studying application of this polity. So in PubEd, the question will not be framed, what are the functions of president, right? Or what are the quasi-judicial functions of president? What are the, what you can say, problems associated with elections of president? What they will ask? They will ask, what is presidentialization of prime minister? What do you mean by a presidential prime minister? अब वो क्या पूछ रहे हैं? See, they are asking that how this position, when it is interacting with the government, when it is performing functions, then how can you understand it? See, so when something is being implemented, something is being applied, something which functions, when you study that part, that mostly focuses on public administration. Anything that you are applying, mostly government related, right? So that part of the GS paper 2, which you call governance, or next part of polity, which is more concerned with issues, reforms, dynamics of Indian political system, right? For example, we have recently or talked about changing the CRPC IPC, amending. You read newspapers, right? We'll be giving you one magazine called Bridge. So time to time, 3 months almost, current affairs will be there. So every 3 months you'll get it. That means obviously when you go from here, then also you'll get it. Don't worry, right? So that will keep you in the loop. Okay, find what current perspectives are needed for polity, governance, PubEd, and likewise. So let us say when you are reading the newspaper, or when you are talking about, let's say, this application of this knowledge, right? So whenever you are reading newspapers, if you read newspapers, it is good, right? You will find certain examples in the newspaper, right? These examples, not the information, but these examples, for example, let's say government has brought CRPC, IPC changes. You know about these? What is CRPC? What is IPC? Right? Leave it. So when you are fighting on the street, police comes, catches you, takes you to the thana, right? And said, by we are filing an FIR under this provision. What is that provision? IPC. Right? CRPC, IPC. Right? What are these? These are something, right, which define what is a criminal act. What is an act of crime defined under that? Right? How to proceed with or tackling this crime? CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, both punishment as well as procedure. This was all made by the Britishers, not by us, obviously. Right? We amended it over a period of time. Now they are bringing amendment to that. So now, is a PubEd student concerned with what are the provisions of IPC? Or PubEd student is more concerned with what will happen if we change the IPC? See? A PubEd student is more concerned with that. What will be the impact if CRPC IPC is changed? How the power of administration will change, will be impacted by this change. See? So in public administration, the focus is more on practical application. There are a lot of theories to be studied, no doubt. Fine, but most of these theories have been developed under America or American scholars and European scholars. Right? Their context was little different from ours. So most of these theories which they developed, which was unfortunately made by engineers only, right? So most of these principles or theories which they developed, it was a consequence of industrialization. So they were witnessing the impact of this change in their society. From this change, they were drawing knowledge, converting them into theory. So most of the theories that also that you'll study, that will seem to you more practical rather than very abstract. Right? So there is less of abstraction in public administration. Right? Things are obviously not that straightforward. They are Public administration is a subject which obviously has dominance of vocabulary. Vocabulary is one very important aspect. Why? In general, also in entire UPSC, you will find, you see the essay paper. Today is essay paper, right? First paper of mains. So you might have access to it in the evening. You just go and see it. You see the essay paper, how they are modifying this essay paper. Right? Earlier, people were classifying essay into economic, political, environmental, technological, religious, women-related, development-related. उसने बोला हटाओ सब. Right? Philosophical, abstract. Everything abstract, all the topics of the essay. Right? Honesty is the best policy. You agree? You agree with this? Can you write 600 words on this? See how commonsensical but still difficult. That is what UPSC is doing. See, it is only trying to make you so independent in terms of writing answers. Right? Logically, you don't have to mug up, you don't have to remember, you don't have to carry that information load anywhere in the exam. The nature of questions are like that now. एक बार समझ लिया, convert that into your own words, use facts and data around you, right? Go and write the answer. They are moving towards that logic now. You don't have to mug up those 4 points and go and write it. No, not required. Your general studies nature of questions, same. Optional nature of questions, more or less same. So in public administration now, right, you have two papers. The PubEd optional helps you in developing a very strong sense of understanding towards various topics in your syllabus. I'm not saying it directly gives you that benefit, but it helps you understand those topics much better than other students, right? If you're studying governance, if you're studying ethics, if you're studying social justice, it helps you understand more dimensions, more deeper understanding of these topics compared to other students. Right? Here, you can take that advantage. What is the advantage? You can use that knowledge or PubEd orientation into your general studies to score, I would say, let's say 1 or 2 extra points. Obviously, it will not be more than that. There is no time in GS paper. Right? More or less, people will write facts. You will also write facts. But 1 or 2 points can be extra. So probably somebody gets 400. Right? But a PubEd student has the chance to score 420, 425, which is a huge marks, considering, right, that lot of ranks change only in 5 marks. Right? 2 marks, you are in the list, and by 2 marks, you are outside the list. I'm standing here, one of them, right? So it makes huge difference, no doubt, right? Your interview marks, many things affect. In interview also, you'll find they have dominantly questions on IR, international relation, right, or governance. Dominantly, they ask you on these areas. So even there also a little bit. I'm not saying it's direct advantage unless you use it. So in many of these papers, you will have some advantage, or GS will have advantage in optional also. It's vice versa. So it's not just one paper, right? I'm not here to sell public administration in any way. The only thing that yes, because it is a subject which is dynamic, it is a subject which helps you practically understand administration. So you are able to write better answers everywhere. Even if you're writing case studies, you understand the administration properly. Probably you understand administration better than others. So people will have superficial knowledge, you will have more technical knowledge. So there you can write your case studies better than others, right? And likewise. So PubEd, you have overall, I would say, if you have to rate it from 1 to 5, so somewhere it falls in between 4 to 4.5 as an optional. Scoring pattern, right? That is one another issue. How scoring pattern changes. See, so to 12, 13, 14, not much score. 15 onwards, they started scoring good marks, right? Obviously, you have certain toppers also in many years, right? Suman Saurav was also one of these students. He got ninth rank, right? But yes, he was a matured student, no doubt. I would not say that you are as equal to him right now as he was, because he has already given 4 attempts. He was already an IRS officer. He was a PCS officer already in Odisha Administrative Services before he became IRS. So he had huge experience, right? But he got very good marks, 299, 300, I think. Jiten Pratap Singh, I think 206, 2016, he got 312 marks, right? And likewise, so many. Rishita, they got good marks. I'm not saying, right, that there were so many who got good marks, but they got good marks. Average scores people scored 275, 290, 305, 310, 12, likewise. Obviously, I'm not talking about 350. Nobody scored. Very rare, right? One of the students scored 329, but she did not qualify interview twice. So her name did not come anywhere, right? In spite of getting good marks. So, but I would say definitely that scoring potential of all the optionals has declined. If you get today 275 plus or 265 to 290, you are a good scorer. In our time, if you are having at least 315, 320 marks, then you are a good scorer. Big difference. Obviously, we were scoring out of 600. You are scoring out of 500, right? But still, if you're getting 50% marks, it was considered good. Why? Because in 49%, you will top the exam. In our times, it was probably 54%, 55%. So see, try to understand, when people say scoring potential, then I don't say scoring potential of an optional, right? It is about scoring potential of the UPSC as such. तो क्या यूपीएससी का पूरा स्कोरिंग पोटेंशियल is increasing or decreasing? See, overall the scoring potential is decreasing. And when that will happen on account of many factors, not just an optional. Not just an optional can make you something, right? So in the same way, the optional cannot mar your chances of becoming one. That should be very clear, right? Public administration scoring, right, depends on two factors. One, the choice of questions. Because poverty is such a dynamic subject, you might feel compelled to write a question just because you feel you have read it in the newspaper. But when you start writing the answer, you will not have concrete facts. You will not have idea about what to write. So sometimes many questions are appealing. The way they design the question paper, it is like that. They seem to be appealing. That okay, I can write. Yet what easy. It's talking about RTI, right to information, right? You start writing, and then you realize halfway कि जो मैंने लिखा है तो irrelevant. Right? It's not qualitative enough to get me marks. See, this is one problem with subjects which are little dynamic, subjects which reflect the changes in the society. So if you start writing questions, right, we always recommend that you at least go through the question twice. It will take hardly 2-3 minutes more. Go through the questions, then choose the question wisely. That is the first step to scoring good marks. Right? Second step is deciphering the question. Many people understand the question on face value. कि Taylor पूछा है, Taylor लिख दो. Weber has been asked, write the Weber. Wilson is asked, okay, write all, copy all the entire Wilson. No. Examiner, that is why I say exam is about strategy. If you understand the question properly, right, you can develop your content properly. Examiner is not looking for entire Wikipedia in the form of answer. He's looking for specific aspects, right? But at the same time, you need to have some analysis of that particular topic. So optional is not like general studies. You write points, write some pointers and go away and say, I've written everything, I'll get marks. No, it is highly subjective, right? You can take one simple example, right? How do you interpret this diagram? How do you interpret? Circle with center, correct? Anybody else? Any other interpretation?
A representation of a nucleus in a cell.
You correct, right? Okay, that can be acceptable, right? What else? Anybody else? See, if I take this background black, assume it is black, right? And this is white. Will it convey something else? There was a painter, American painter, who died at the age of 37. He had made one painting like this, which sold in millions. Why? Because he represented this by white and a black dot in between. And he said, this for me indicates the exploitation or racial exploitation of the black by the whites. Is पेंटिंग एज अ स्किल, कलर, लाइंस, ड्राइंग की कोई वैल्यू है? कुछ नहीं. वैल्यू किस चीज की है? On what process, on what thinking, on what thought, on what idea this painting has been made. See. So when you see M.F. Husain's painting, right? Half animal, half human, right? Or some painting, those horse painting, very popular, right? Or Ganesha painting, which became controversial, right? So when you look at those paintings, what does it convey? It conveys you the mindset of the painter, right? Not the brush skill of the painter. So see, जब भी आप कोई चीज लिखोगे, interpretation बहुत सारे होंगे, right? Every question when you read, you will think in multiple ways. Oh, he is asking about this. Examiner is asking about this. See, you might have multiple interpretations. So, see, a person who writes, who understands that, okay, out of whatever I'm interpreting, which of these are vital to this particular question? So, there are 5 dimensions to a question, but out of these 5, 2 are vital. Rest 3 are consequence of that. The day you understand it, you'll start writing answers. So to score more, you have to understand the question properly. You have to choose the question properly, right? And then lastly, obviously you have to develop your expression. Expression is very important. You have to write essay, you need expression. You cannot say, I'll go and write essay as an answer. Nobody will accept it. Right? When you're writing an answer, you'll also have to understand, okay, what will examiner interpret if I write this content? But yeah, it cannot be done in one day. It takes time. So see, slowly you will be able to do it. Right? It's not a big deal. I can see some potential in you as of now. Okay, it might be a little spark, right? But it has to be what we need to do with that spark. We need to ignite it. So see, if you start enjoying the subject that you're reading, right? Irrespective of whether you like reading it or not, it doesn't matter. ठीक है, आपको नहीं पसंद है उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है, लेकिन आपको एंजॉय क्यों करना है? क्योंकि ये आपकी डेस्टिनी है. अब the moment you accept it, it is destiny, I have to use, right? I cannot override it, I cannot remove it, I have to do it. So the day you realize you are doing something, okay, not just because I like it, but because it is something right, it is something needed, it is something I'm passionate about, even if I don't like it. Right? See, people are passionate about their work, even if they don't like their office. People are passionate about their work, even if they don't like the content of the work. Right? So see, there are a lot of people who don't like their office, but they will reach office every day, 365 days a year at the same time. Passionate, duty. So when you say it is a duty, you do it, irrespective of whether you like it or not. So imagine this way, you have to take your mother to the hospital, right? But your legs are paining. Your friend calls you, you don't go, oh, I have a pain in my leg, I will not come. Right? But your mother has to be taken to the hospital, she is not well. What will you do? You will go irrespective of the severe pain you will have. Why? It is duty. तो ऐसी एज एन एस्पिरेंट आपकी ड्यूटी क्या है? पढ़ना, राइट? तो आपको पसंद हो ना पसंद हो, दैट इज डिफरेंट. फाइन. सो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू हैव chosen this field on your own, and how many of you have been influenced by your padosi, rishtedar, right, or somebody on the internet, whatever? How many of you feel that it is your choice? Okay, all of you, then it is good. You don't feel it is why?
Sir, actually, my brother was your
Student. So
that's why he was
he told me you कि नहीं अब prepare करो.
no, sir, he's not remembering syllabus schedule quality as you told.
No, but you want to become IAS or not?
Yes, sir.
That is your, it's your will or someone else's will?
So it's fine.
Your father's ambition तो नहीं है?
Nice, sir.
Because in UP, Bihar, some central Indian states, right? Yeah, we have IAS, becoming IAS is a national hobby. Yes. Whatever they do, once they will prepare for civil services. They become doctor, then also they'll come and prepare for civil services. Right? They are already doing something else. They are in the corporate world, or even if they are acting in the films, they will come and prepare for civil service. Manoj Vajpayee is an example. So see, that is a hobby. That is something considered to be what you say a ritual, sacrosanct ritual. Right? The god has to be clean with the milk. Same way that is considered to be cleansing of your career. You have to once go through civil services either in Mukherjee Nagar or Old Rajendra Nagar. एक बार तो जाना ही है. Right? Whether आप मोमोज खा के वापस आ जाओ, but जाना तो है. You have to go. See, that is how they feel. So this is like we have a baggage, right? My father gave IFS, he became IFS actually. So he gave IFS interview, Indian Forest Services. But he could not give IS interview, right? Then he put me in the process, ki bhai tum do ab. So I gave IS interview, I did not go beyond that, right? So maybe now he'll take my son later on. Ki bhai now you also give, your father reached the interview, ab tum qualify. ये intergenerational hobby hai. It's not just one generation. So see, people sometimes get obsessed with this idea just because everyone else is doing it. That is also incorrect. You should never do that, right? In fact, you are not in the age where you will actually understand what you want. People say follow your passion, right? What about roti and dal? What will happen to that? गिटार तो खाएंगे नहीं, तो पैशन का मतलब क्या है? See, something which is done, right, not just as a hobby, something which is done in terms of your commitment to it, and at the same time if it becomes your livelihood, then it's good. So कोई livelihood pursue करे और उस livelihood में उसका commitment हो, वो उसका passion हो जाएगा, right? Why passion is something hobby? Passion can be your job also, right? So people, this entire world, जो Western concept है ना, individualism, that Western concept of individualism has created these problems. I want to pursue this, I want to do that. See, you are not in that age where you can actually understand what will be the implication of the decision you take now. The only thing is that you can reduce the unpredictability by starting early, by doing the right thing, by following the strategy, right? And obviously at the same time leaving something to him. You cannot do everything for yourself, right? So if you follow these combinations and be optimistic, right? You will be tired, you'll be irritated. We have all gone through the same process, right? So imagine in my last interview, obviously I became so casual. अच्छा कोई बात नहीं, ठीक. Right? When you go to the interview hall, right? So they have a list. So you can ask them, okay, when is my interview scheduled? So he told me 1:30 is your interview. I said, okay, fine. He generally does not know the board in which you will go, right? The person who's there coordinating, he doesn't know the board because all the people call these students. Whatever is left in the end, that is your board. So I was the last one in my last attempt. 1:30 was my interview call. I asked him, okay, which interview? He said, yahi khali, this is the interview board. Every rest, other boards are occupied. So obviously this will be your board, right? It was the board which I never wanted. So I got prejudiced already before entering. On top of that, you are tired because you enter at 9 o'clock, but your interview is 1:30, right? And then you get the interview board you never wanted, right? So the interview board whom you are criticizing outside, now you are entering into that board, you become prejudiced. That is why you are trained in such a manner. So what happens, generally the background, middle class comes from a background where people are too emotional, right? We value things, evaluate things on those grounds. When you are entering into that interview hall, you should leave that baggage outside. So in spite of giving interviews frequently, we did not learn that. Why? Probably because we were never accustomed to that idea. When you're sitting there, be professional. See? So you entered, I entered, and I was prejudiced. I saw that person, right? And I became conscious. He was a very famous person who has written a book on C++. E. Balagod Swami. Have you heard his name? Engineers, right? They read his book, C++. Obviously, he asked me, have you read this book? I said, no. Right? I was a chemical engineer, not a computer engineer. Again, I got conscious कि अब ये सोचेगा इसने मेरी किताब तो पढ़ी नहीं है. So you generally create problem for yourself. He is not interpreting you that way. We are interpreting ourselves. That is why I said, if you feel that somebody has influenced you, or somebody has told you become that, right? Or you don't think this is the right career, you want to do something else, you are not in that stage right now. You invest 5-6 months, give your best effort, you will realize, okay, fine, yes, this is the career I wanted, or this is something I would like to do. Because even your preparation might take 1.5 to 2 years. So see, this exam is not about mugging. It is not about ratifying. It is not about memorizing things, right? First, it is about knowing or understanding, then technically applying that knowledge. So in public administration, right, we'll start with the syllabus analysis, right? How many of you have gone through syllabus? Let me give you just very brief idea today. Tomorrow we'll talk about paper 1. How many of you have seen the syllabus of PubEd? How you define public administration? Let's start with this. Do you think you can define PubEd? And there is a need to define public administration? There is a need to define something or not? Why? So that you can understand it. How you define PubEd? Public administration, administering the public administration. As simple as that. Population, society, right? So just now we said state. State is use of power in a particular territory, right? Now see, in that territory, how this power will be used. We have simply said state will use power, but how it will use this power? Through some system. That system is administration. So the system that we use to manage people, to manage society, to govern society, to resolve its problems, just like we have a system in the family. Let's say same system we have in the society. So the system that we use to resolve these problems, issues, pursue certain goals of development, right? That system is called administration. If this system is used for the society as a whole and not for few individuals, it is called public administration. Public here means society. Public means common. Public means people. Public also means citizens. And public ultimately means government. Because when you say who is government or what is government, it is for the people. So see, citizens indirectly imply government. Government indirectly imply citizens. So managing, governing, achieving the goals, resolving the problems of the society by a system, that is called public administration. When this is applied for a specific system, not for the society as a whole, right, but for few people, but for a selected group, right, in a different form, that is called private administration. So in your family, if you have a system to resolve your problems, to govern your family, to do things for family, right? To punish people who break the norms of the family. So if you have a system for that, that can be called as private administration. If a private company has a system for that, it will be called as private administration, right? But anywhere you use the term administration will signify the use of power or authority to do things, चाहे वो फैमिली हो, प्राइवेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हो या गवर्नमेंट सिस्टम, anywhere. So sometimes we use the word public administration and sometimes we use the word public management. This term also you'll encounter. So पब्लिक की स्टडी क्या है? Basically just to know that how we can improve, how we can manage the society in a better manner, what problems society encounters, and do we have solutions for them or not. As simple. And the system which does all that is called public administration, right? Or the system of public administration. So if you want to understand public administration, you have to first start by asking what it does in the society. What exactly is society? What kind of problems, what kind of functions are needed to manage a society? So if you know what functions are needed to be fulfilled in the society, you will understand what functions public administration performs. Right? So see, in any society, you have these problems, they are to be resolved, and that is what public administration does. So when you study PubAd, first thing you study is obviously society, right? Or you try to understand what is a society, what problems are there in a society, right? Is there or are there different types of societies? Do we have different types of society? Like how we classify societies? Classification of society. See, if you say economic classification, right? Developed, developing, underdeveloped classification. Right? Cultural basis. You said religion, let's take culture. Culture is a broad criteria, bigger criteria. Right? Backward society. Caste is part of culture, right? Conservative society. Gender based. Patriarchal society, matriarchal society. Right? Then we can say, right? Progressive society, tribal society, right? And likewise, there are various bases on which societies can be classified. So see, but any form of society be there, it doesn't matter. Every society needs some form of system to manage itself. You go to the Rig Vedic era, right? Or even post or later Vedic era, you'll find whatever the form of societies existed, they all had an administrative system. Kautilya, 323 BC, or 323, 324 BC, talks about Arthashastra, the famous book Arthashastra, right? There also, his almost half of the book is about administration. So in that era also, there was a need for administration, right? Imagine something that there were people, nomadic people living in caves. How will they be surviving? They would be eating something or no, right? So let's say hunting, gathering, right? For hunting, right? Hunting was not easy then. Why? We had not discovered metal. नहीं थे ना? वो बनाते थे stone flints. You know that? So let's say even for that they needed a logic that you have to sharpen this stone somewhere. You need some logic, no? Right? So see, people who were hunting, gathering, who were nomadic in nature, okay, they also pursued hunting for survival. For hunting was not easy, so obviously they would be developing a plan. There was no GPS system, no, to locate the animal. There was no geotagging of the animal, right? So how they would be knowing the animals will come? Obviously, they used to communicate with nature. Evening ho gaya, 5 baj gaye, they will come to the pond to drink water, right? Or hyena started screeching. Okay, they got a message. Okay, that some herd of this or antelope is coming to this particular area. See, they could communicate with nature. They were so smart. So even if when they were hunting and they had to look for their prey, obviously they needed a plan. Planning requires coordination. Planning requires involvement of people. See, that is a very crude form of administration. Why? Because you are coming together as a group, as a community to perform some task. What that task is for the survival of your society. See? So, in the very crudest societies also of the world, there was some form of administration or some form of activity which involved contribution of many people together to support or to protect their society. So from there to farming, to settled life, to whatever they did, right? In every phase, there was an evolving nature of administration till the time we become democratic, till the time we become modern industrial society. See? So starting from there, hunting and gathering to modern industrial society, we are evolving as a society. So are we evolving as an administration? Yes. You see, the administrative knowledge or the administrative understanding which was there that time obviously would not be what today we have. So we have evolved knowledge today. But in every era, in every aspect of human life, there was a need for administrative knowledge. Right? But whether we had books for that, you see and go and read the caves or many of the manuscripts which are written on the caves. चाहे मोहनजोदड़ो हो, हड़प्पा हो, right? Later, जो Indus Valley civilizations are later part of that. Anywhere you go, you'll find they have a lot of information on the cave walls. What was this information for? Passing on this knowledge to the next generation. Remembering, obviously, they did not have notebooks. They had to remember the knowledge, right? They could have shared this knowledge with others, see, more easily. So, see, those people also knew the importance of documenting something, writing something down. What we talk about today, what administration government does, they make laws, they document laws, right? They impose laws, they find out how people can break law and then bring reforms for them. They were also doing the same thing. They were documenting everything. So in every civilization, right, whether it was developed, underdeveloped, every society, whether it was tribal, modern, progressive, liberal, conservative, traditional, jo bhi form ho, everywhere there was an administrative system. So there is a scholar, Nicholas Henry. His book is very popular in public administration, right, known as Public Administration and Public Affairs. So Nicholas Henry's name is very popular. Right? Generally, you don't read, we don't read. Teachers read, students used to read earlier. Now, obviously, they don't read, right? It's a complicated book. So, Nicholas Henry has said in the beginning of his book, right, that bureaucracy is in our bones. Right? What does it mean? Bureaucracy, administration is in our bones. क्या है इसका मतलब? Right? If we go for excavation, we find out some of the skeletons of our ancestors. Do we find any impact of administration there? Yes, we find burial ground, mortuary, kuch bhi ho, right? They are saying, he's saying, when you excavate the remains of human civilization, you find that there was some form of administration. मोहनजोदाड़ो हड़प्पा को अभी खोद के देखो क्या होगा, कुछ तो मिलेगा ना भाई. There was a great bath, right? The town was divided into two parts, the upper and the lower, right? And like you see. So every civilization you will give you some knowledge, right? Every era will give you some knowledge regarding administration, right? So see, public administration is something which should not be just understood in terms of that book or syllabus. It should be understood in common sense manner practically around us. So whatever you study in PubAd, obviously will start from that syllabus, right? But it will not be restricted to that syllabus. The nature of questions they are asking is very interlinked. Right? Interlinked means not tough, but interlinked means that you have to think beyond that topic. There are 12 units in the first paper. 14 in the second paper, 26 units. But out of that 26, only 15 to 16 are relevant. All others are part of them. So when you see paper 2, around 4 units overlapping. Right? Paper 1, 6 units, most important, around 200 marks. 180 to 200 marks in paper 1 covered from those 6 units only. तो important क्या है? Knowing the exam or nature of exam or knowing the syllabus. So knowing the syllabus as per the nature of exam, that is more important. Fine. So if we start with this obviously subject, right? So we'll start with first understanding the syllabus. You'll get a breakup of the syllabus. Books and references, don't be bothered about it. You don't need one, first of all. Right? Secondly, whenever you need it, we have a mechanism. We obviously teach, then we explain, then we discuss, then we make you write. Fine. Then we discuss questions. So there is a lengthy process we follow. And then you get handouts. Right? So those handouts, right, plus PYQ, there are a lot of things you get. So those handouts, right, will serve as supplementary to the class. Once you understand the class, you write things, then you read handout. So a handout gives you some additional facts, right? Logic and concepts are taught in the class itself. So anything related to that topic, right, you will not get anything out of that if you study it properly. So we recommend that you study and at least go and revise 15-20 minutes every day. Right? Answers will give you questions. You have to write answers, submit them, fine, but don't do it like a boj. Right? So don't do it something that you are just doing, right, because somebody has asked you to do it. So don't do that way. Right? Write those answers, take your time, submit it. Right? We'll evaluate it. In fact, I evaluate all the answers. That is a problem, right? But I do it. So we evaluate each and everything that you do. Your grammatical composition, your expression, vocabulary, language, right? The way you have expressed things, everything is evaluated. तो हो सकता है कि मैं आपसे ज्यादा आपकी कॉपी पे लिखूं, right? It is possible that I may be writing more than you in your notebook, but it will not be a criticism. It will be for improving you. So if you follow this, right, in 5.5 months, whatever we do, right, I don't think you require anything else beyond it except for revising it at least 2 to 3 times, right? Because you'll have to appear for prelims, right? If you're giving prelims, it's good, right? So obviously you need 2 months exclusively for your prelims. Right? You have any doubt? We'll start tomorrow. Do you have access to the app? You have that PDF with you, fine? Or you can ask for the printout, right? Whatever. So tomorrow we'll start with that discussion of paper 1 and part A, paper 1. That is basically theories of administration. Fine? Any doubt you have, Rao? No doubt. अभी कहाँ से doubt होगा? We have no doubt only in 2 circumstances. या आ गया या फिर ओवरहेड ट्रांसमिशन. फाइन. सो अगर हो भी गया तो कोई बात नहीं. फर्स्ट क्लास, इट डजंट मैटर. राइट. सी यू देन टुमारो. Okay, online, do you have any doubt? Right, if you don't have doubt, then let's meet tomorrow.